In this video, we present a simplified summary of Stephen Mooser's article, Outlaw Treasure at Utah's Robbers' Roost, published in the December 1974 issue of the magazine, Long John Latham's True Treasure. This story follows the author's hunt for the lost treasure of outlaw Butch Cassidy and his notorious Wild Bunch, revealed by the gang's last surviving member to be buried atop a certain mesa in Utah's Canyonlands. Enjoy.
Utah's Sinbad Desert, a place of breathtaking beauty and unforgiving harshness, stands as a testament to nature's formidable power. In this desolate wasteland, the preciousness of water is evident, as the few wells that exist are a product of relentless human labor. The very emptiness of the desert, its vast and desolate nature, forms the core of its allure. Today, only a brave few dare to tread upon its unforgiving terrain, heeding the warnings of government signs that emphasize the importance of ample gasoline and water supplies. Yet, it is this very isolation that conceals a valuable treasure within its heart. Situated in southeastern Utah, between Castledale and the Colorado River, the Sinbad Desert bears witness to a storied past. Once a bustling stage for notorious bandit gangs, including the infamous Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, the desert now stands as a tranquil and solitary expanse. The allure of the desert for outlaws lay in the old Spanish Trail, a humble dirt road connecting Green River, Castledale, and Farron in present times. However, in its heyday, this frontier thoroughfare served as a vital artery for communication between the East and West, carrying precious cargo even after the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. Many of these outlaws migrated to the Sinbad from Brown's Hole, a secretive hideout nestled on the border of Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. With 10 cabins providing sanctuary for gang members, Brown's Hole offered an ideal refuge, allowing the outlaws to vanish into neighboring states at the first hint of approaching lawmen. Evidently, the neighboring states did not share a spirit of cooperation, rendering the outlaws nearly immune to the long arm of the law. In the tumultuous 1880s, George Leroy Parker, better known as the notorious Butch Cassidy, led his band of outlaws from the infamous Brown's Hole to carve out a new sanctuary amidst the rugged terrain of the Sinbad Desert. Nestled within the eastern reaches of Wayne County, they christened this impenetrable stronghold as Robbers' Roost, a haven concealed by sheer cliffs and labyrinthine box canyons. From this bastion, the Wild Bunch, the McCarty Gang, the Blue Mountain Gang, and other notorious groups sallied forth to pillage trains, wayfarers, and banks in the vicinity. For nearly 2 decades, until the turn of the century, these brazen gangs operated with near impunity, met only occasionally with resistance during their daring heists. Once ensconced within the impregnable walls of Robbers' Roost, they basked in absolute safety, evading the pursuit of any lawman daring enough to challenge them within their fortress. Over time, these audacious bands amassed considerable riches, stashing away their ill-gotten gains in hidden caches scattered throughout the surrounding hills. Fast forward to 1966, when I found myself embroiled in a clandestine hunt for treasure near the fabled Robbers' Roost. Until now, the whereabouts of this cache have remained shrouded in secrecy. Following 3 arduous expeditions into the desert, my partner and I finally pinpointed the elusive treasure site in the scorching summer of 1969. Regrettably, lacking the essential metal detecting equipment crucial for unearthing the treasure's exact location, we found ourselves unable to complete the quest. Thus, I share this tale in the fervent hope that a more equipped and patient soul will yet discover the hidden spoils. The origins of this tale trace back to the verdant forests of Oregon in 1910, where a logging enterprise was overseen by a former denizen of Robbers' Roost. Veiled in mystery, his enigmatic past remained largely unknown until the day he summoned his foreman, a certain Baker, and began to regale him with reminiscences of his bygone days in the untamed lands of Utah. "I've grown fond of you," the weathered old man began, his gaze reminiscent of times long past. "I reckon it's time I shared with you the whereabouts of a trove of gold and silver nestled in the heart of Utah. It's a fortune that can set you up for life." The old man proceeded to spin a yarn about his band of miscreants and their stashing away of riches atop a mesa in the desolate desert. Their final escapade saw them pocketing 10 gleaming silver bars from a daring robbery. With the law hot on their heels, they sought refuge at the mesa, burying the silver alongside their other ill-gotten gains. With a somber tone, the old man confided in Baker, revealing that he was the last surviving member of the gang. "There were 10 of us," he recounted. 8 met their end in Utah, and the 9th met his fate at my hands in Oregon, following a dispute some years back. I'm the sole survivor. The treasure lay hidden atop one of 2 identical mesas that rose from the sprawling flatlands. The telltale marker for the cache was a lake adorning the mesa's summit. Beneath the waters of this ephemeral lake, fed only by rain, lay the accumulated spoils from 15 years of lawless exploits. The old man concluded his tale with a cautionary note, forewarning Baker that claiming the treasure would be no mean feat. Years elapsed before Baker could embark on the quest for the treasure. In 1914, he enlisted in the nascent Army Air Corps, mastering the art of piloting a plane. Following World War I, he confided in a comrade about robbers' roost and the hidden riches. Together, they pooled their resources and acquired an aircraft, aiming to land it beside the mesas. Before setting off for Utah, Baker divulged the details of the treasure to his elder brother, a respected family man with a flourishing business in New Jersey. Alas, the youthful Baker and his companion vanished without a trace, presumed to have met their end somewhere amidst the unforgiving desert, their fate forever shrouded in mystery. 3 years later, the older Baker showed up in Ferrin, Utah, a sleepy farming town on the edge of the desert. Anyone who would move from the east to Ferrin completely mystified the townspeople. The mystery deepened when they learned Baker had sold his business and home in New Jersey before moving. Baker asked everyone he met who was most familiar with the desert. The answer was always the same old Williams, the sheep herder. For 50 years, Williams had driven his sheep back and forth across the Sinbad to find grazing land. He knew the desert better than anyone else. A year after he arrived in Ferrin, Baker approached Williams with a proposition. "Lead me to the mesas and we'll split the treasure," Baker said. William agreed, and together they made a series of trips to the twin mesas. The steep walls of the mesas repulsed their efforts to reach the top. They needed to blast a new trail with dynamite. Williams purchased the explosives, and they prepared for a final assault. On the eve of their departure, Baker had a heart attack and died in Williams' home. After the funeral, the Baker family collected their belongings and returned to New Jersey. Williams, determined to find the treasure, made several trips to the mesas. Before he could realize his dream, however, he was thrown from a horse, sustaining a back injury that halted his treasure hunting days forever. The dynamite meant to blast a new trail was never used. Still crated, it is in a bog behind Williams' now deserted house in Ferrin. For many years, the treasure lay forgotten. Mrs. Williams corresponded with Baker's widow, but they rarely discussed the treasure that had now cost 3 men their lives. There was an unspoken agreement that Baker's 2 boys would inherit the silver and gold, but tragedy struck when one son perished in the throes of World War II, while the other resided in Europe, harboring no inclination to brave the perils of the Sinbad Desert. Meanwhile, in Provo, William's daughter wed and bore a son, John, who remained oblivious to the lore of Robbers' Roost for fear that he might recklessly venture into the treacherous desert. In 1963, surveyors charting the course of Interstate Highway 70 stumbled upon remnants of Baker's plane, sparking a local newspaper headline detailing the discovery of a vintage World War I aircraft in the forlorn expanse of the Sinbad, bearing only a fragmented nameplate containing the letter Sur, acre, leaving its identity shrouded in mystery. Upon reading the account, the elderly Mrs. Williams discerned that the wreckage was none other than the ill-fated plane of young Baker. For the first time in years, she divulged her late husband's quest for the treasure to her grown grandson, John Maughan. Unsurprisingly, John set off into the desert in pursuit of the elusive treasure. In 1965, a dedicated treasure researcher in Salt Lake City caught wind of John's quest, recognizing that he was onto something significant. She offered to fund a helicopter survey of the area in exchange for the treasure's location, but John adamantly refused. In 1966, I joined the same company as John, and upon learning of my interest in buried treasure, he divulged the tale of the mesas and their concealed riches. We forged a partnership to pursue the treasure, and chartered a plane to survey the region between Green River and Ferrin. Despite encountering numerous mesas in the vicinity, none matched the description. Undeterred, We procured aerial photographs from the government mapping service, which led us to believe we had pinpointed the site. We journeyed to Utah, scaling the mountains only to find that the mesas, located approximately 25 miles north of Hanksville, were a near-perfect match except for the absence of a lake or depression atop them, and their diminutive size rendered them unsuitable as a viable hiding place. After nearly 2 years of fruitless searching, we sought solace in Provo, where John's mother lamented that she wished she had accompanied her husband to the mesas. Her revelation proved to be the breakthrough we desperately needed. Until then, our search had been confined to the desert between Farron and Green River, but now, a pristine expanse to the south lay open for our exploration. In the cold of February 1969, I got my hands on some detailed topographic maps of the desert near Green River. There, to the southwest of Green River, lay 2 identical flat tops. There was no mistaking it. We had stumbled upon the site. Every detail matched up. The twin mesas stood solitary in an otherwise level terrain. They were sizable, a day's ride from Robbers' Roost. Both soared 600 feet straight up from the desert floor, stretching a mile in length and half a mile in width. Come July 1969, John and I ventured to Utah once more in pursuit of the treasure. The correct mesas rest midway between Green River and Hanksville, nestled along State Highway 24, visible from the road as a dirt track winds its way across the desert toward them. While the road posed some sandy stretches, it remained navigable for a standard automobile. After a winding journey of nearly 10 miles, we found ourselves just below the mesas. At their base lay a well, a vital water source for cattle. Setting up camp, we readied our gear and commenced the perilous ascent of the farther mesa the following morning. Armed with canteens, ropes, shovels, and a lightweight metal detector, we grappled with the often sheer walls of the mesa, occasionally having to backtrack. The thin air at such heights made breathing a struggle, but after 3 grueling hours, we conquered the summit. Our expectations were promptly dashed. The sheer scale of the mesa took us by surprise, its top pockmarked with numerous depressions of varying sizes, any of which could have turned into lakes during rainfall. Dividing our efforts, we scoured the mesa for probable treasure locations, yet our modest detector proved insufficient for the mammoth task of combing the entire mesa. Then, near the western edge, John made an electrifying find. Half buried in the sand lay an ancient rusted pistol. Our conviction in having found the right mesas was now unshakable. However, the detector yielded naught further in the immediate vicinity. Late in the afternoon, a thunderstorm drifted over the horizon toward the mesa. Rather than risk getting caught in it, we quickly descended and returned, exhausted, to camp. The next morning we held a conference to decide whether to climb the other mesa. Its walls were even steeper, and there was a chance we would need ropes to scale it. I had seen the top of the mesa from the edge of the other one the day before. The terrain looked similar, containing many depressions which would have to be searched. We elected not to try the ascent. We simply did not have time to survey the entire mountaintop with our small detector. Finding the treasure, which is estimated at $100,000 to $500,000 in value, will involve weeks of work with good detecting equipment. Chances that someone else removed the treasure are remote. 3 people, the Baker brothers and the other pilot, all believed enough in the treasure's authenticity to give their lives searching for it. After the older Baker died, only the Williams and Baker families knew the story. John and I kept the secret until now. With mixed feelings, we left the Sinbad Desert. We had at least confirmed the existence of the 2 mesas the story refers to. It will be for others to find the treasure.